Until a century ago, the whole of Ireland was part of the UK. An independence movement changed that, and on December 6, 1921, the Irish Free State was declared. But the 6 counties of Northern Ireland remained part of the UK.
Today, we still have tears. Not so many, thank God. But the conquest of Japan, hand in hand with our American allies, is a formidable undertaking which we must and will see through to the end. And we must still look forward.
Talk about our national strength in trade and naval supremacy, and how long do you think it will be before somebody mentions the slave trade? What about actually celebrating Englishness with an English flag, the Cross of St George? Whoa, that might make the people next door scared if they are Asian or black.
Well, I was just going to say, though, you've talked about this at the United Nations and many other places about a need for a holistic approach by the international community. What does that mean to you practically, Prime Minister? What do you need to see there?
So I've been, every forum, I've been trying to say this because the two, communities, Muslims living in Western world, they are the ones who suffer from Islamophobia. And then they suffer, we hear about incidents. A lot of incidents don't get reported, but we know about it. Our embassies tell us. So this gap needs to be closed.
Englishness and English nationalism today is a hostile ideology which is opposed to the thinking of all modern and progressive people. It is often asserted today that there isn't such a thing as an English identity, and that even if there were, it's something to be ashamed of rather than to glory in. So what has changed since the publication of this book? That's not hard to see. When Labour were elected in 1997, they set out cold-bloodedly to change the ethnic composition of this country.
The British people have spoken, and the answer is we're out.
On June 23, 2016, the UK narrowly voted for Brexit, to withdraw from the European Union. It was sold as a way to get independence, save millions of pounds, and gain full control of the UK's borders.
There would be ATM transactions, say, from Spain. That means you were in Spain on those days, and suddenly after a few days there are ATM transactions in UK. So that shows that you were back. So that can be sometimes an issue. There are no requirements for any educational qualifications. You don't have to provide anything like that. There is no issue with benefits or tax credits. A lot of people would ask, this is a frequently asked question, if I'm taking benefits, would that affect my nationality application? The answer is always no. So once you have your indefinite leave to remain, then that is something which is not a consideration at all for a nationality application.
This was to be done by opening our borders and allowing all the world to come here. Of course, many of those who came from Asia had different religions from ours, and so we had to stop talking of this being a Christian country. The very thought of saying what is printed in this book, that the English are traditionally Protestant Christians, became seen as a declaration of hostility towards Muslims.
What is it that government should be doing, for instance, to shut down online hate toward Muslims?
I think there should be a very strict action against this, because you see these hate websites, which again, as I said, would divide humanity by creating hatred, ignorant about the other human community, and you target them and this hate material.
The increasing use of the term Islamophobia ensured that people stopped talking in that way about a Christian country. Then began an assault upon our history, our very sense of self, of who we are.
One week supermarket shelves are empty, the next there are fights at gas stations as the fuel runs dry. Benefits are being cut, taxes are going up, wages have stagnated for more than a decade, and the COVID death toll is rising. Because even before Brexit, UK governments had played to right-wing xenophobia for more than a decade. In 2007, Labour Prime Minister Gordon Brown promised British jobs for British workers. 5 years later, the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition government launched a policy called the hostile environment, which was a tactic to encourage immigrants to leave by making life difficult for them. And the anti-foreigner message was one of the key tactics of Brexit campaigners, sometimes dog-whistly, sometimes openly racist.
Side. Here it's radicalization. On the stage of destabilization, we cannot come to compromise even within a family. The husband and wife couldn't figure out which is better. Husband wants his kids to eat at the table, and wife wants a child to roam around the room and drop food all over the floor. They cannot come to compromise unless they start a fight. It's impossible to reach a compromise, constructive compromise, between neighbors. Some people say, I don't like you to watering your lawn at that time because exactly at that time I'm walking my dog and he's getting nervous. He cannot pass his bowels, you know. So they cannot compromise. They go to a civil court or something like that. Radicalization of human relations. No more compromise. Fight, fight, fight.
The things of which we had once been proud, such as our valour in warfare, came to be seen as something to shut up about because it was part of the history of colonialism and slave trade.
The normal, traditionally accepted relations are destabilized. The relations between teachers and students in schools and colleges. Fight.
But what Brexit meant in practice was leaving a political and economic union that the UK had helped build for the last 50 years. One of the EU's biggest achievements was that every citizen had the freedom to travel, live and work wherever they wanted. So that meant a Brit could decide to move to sunny Spain without needing permission from anyone, and a Romanian could get a job in Britain just as easily.
England's prowess at trade simply showed that they were part of the problem of Western capitalism, which had caused all the world's problems in the first place. Naval supremacy? That too was part of the problem. History had to be rewritten, a process which is still going on. A nation's identity is of course founded in great part upon pride in its history. If you can take an axe to that history and destroy it, then the national identity will also wither away.
The harder is the fight, the better. The more heroic they look. When the Greyhound network was on strike recently, the correspondents of local TV networks all over the United States were approaching these strikers, and they say, oh yes, we are doing something nice. They look like heroes and they were proud. There was some family, the husband was a bus driver. Now they decided in a protest against the bosses to camp somewhere in the forest. And they were presented to the audience as a heroic, nice people. You see? The violent clashes between passengers, picketers, and the strikers are presented as something normal. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we would be angry, say, why so much hatred? Today we are not. We say, well, commonplace. Radicalization, militarization sometimes. As I explained on that stage, I took a step a little bit further. Shooting people. Okay, law and order now also is pushed into the area where previously people settled their differences peacefully and legitimately. Now we are getting with this court cases in the smallest irrelevant cases. We cannot solve our problems anymore. The society at large becomes more and more antagonistic between individuals, between groups of individuals, and the society at large. The media puts himself in the opposition to the society in general, at large. separate, alienated.
I've talked enough in the past about this process, and I'm sure that viewers have seen it happening for themselves. With the abandoning of our history, we also ditched the idea of ethno-nationalism, which had been a thread running through English history for many centuries. A lot of Europeans were doing the same thing. The European Union promised to make the ethno-state a thing of the past.
What a shame it would be, and what a folly, to add to our load the bitter quarrels with which the extreme socialists are eager to convulse and exploit these critical years.
You know, the world is just coming to grips with it because it's a new phenomenon. And unfortunately, I mean, while there's so many benefits of social media, it's changing the whole world. But this one particular bit, when there are these hate websites which create hatred amongst human beings, there should be an international action against them.
In the Middle East and other parts of the world, ethno-states were and are still very much a thing, of course. We have the Arab Republic of Egypt, to give it its full and correct name, the Syrian Arab Republic, the Jewish Republic of Israel, and so on. Then we have nations openly defined by their religion, such as the Islamic Republic of Iran. In Europe, though, dropping religion and ethnicity as a way of defining a nation was seen as the up-to-date and progressive way of doing things. Between Tony Blair's government and the European Union's malign influence, English identity could hardly be expected to survive, and it barely has done.
Once again, now, today, I must tell you that in spite of all our victories, a rough road lies ahead.
I think you should apologise.